You're listening to Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G., a podcast that invites you to experience the world through the perspective of one black man, one conversation, one story, or even one rant at a time. Here's Dr. G.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to another segment of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. I'm excited to be with you again today, and as always, I've got an exciting show and an exciting guest. Hey, but before I get into the subject of today's discussion, let me just say, I always mention that we have people all over the world listening to the podcast and downloading episodes. It's about 15 countries. However, I just thought I'd do a little breakdown of what the market looks like here in the U.S., just to, shout out to our listeners here in the U.S. Of course, the top market is Madison, Wisconsin, my hometown. Madison, thank you for that. Ooh. Yeah, second city, no pun intended, is Chicago, my hometown. That's where I was actually born. So thank you for Chicagoans for listening. Third is L.A., and I love Los Angeles. So to my friends who are listening out in the L.A. area, thank you so much for being part of the Black Like Me family. Now, this is what's really interesting. When you look at like the next segment, the next cities, they're tied. They're like just one download away from each other. That's Seattle, Minneapolis, and New York City. And so, first of all, I've got a crew in Seattle. I love Seattle. I love New York City. But you gonna let Seattle do that to y'all? Ooh. And so again, Seattle, Minneapolis, New York City, and Minneapolis is right next door. And hey, what's up, New Jersey? My friends in Bergen County, folks in Inglewood, and come on, you guys, you can't let New York just come and just take over. I hang out in New York, but I sleep in New Jersey when I'm there. So hey, so Madison, Chicago, LA, but then Seattle and Minneapolis and New York City, you all are neck and neck. So I'm going to come back, next week and let you know how you're doing in terms of downloads. Hey, I've got a special segment today as well as a special guest. For the entire month of June, I've been really focusing on fatherhood, not the negative part of it, not the bad part of it, because we can do that year round. But I wanted to really commit June to the subject of looking at real good fathers and what dads are doing and just sharing points of views by and for dads. And today I have a colleague and a friend in the studio. His name is Hicks, and we're kicking off. We're sampling something. We actually want to see how this concept of today's show, which is entitled "Fathering Fatherless Fathers," might catch on. So we need you to listen in real closely. Let us know what you think about it, because if you think that this is a good segment, we may bring this back. But what I realized in my passion for studying fatherhood and leadership is that many of my peers are dads, but they've never been fathered. And so now they're in a position of fathering their children, but there's so many questions they have because they're really trying to be something and do something they've never seen outside of television characters. And so Hicks has been a colleague of mine for about 7 or 8 years. He's actually part of my team. He is the assistant director of our Reentry programs, and that's a program that really helps men and women who are returning back to their communities from prison. It's helping them to become acclimated back to the community. So he focuses on advocacy, case management. He leads a support group. Meets twice a week, a plethora of things, placing folks in jobs, and is really a known entity in our community. And I really think a thought leader and a trailblazer. He also just graduated from our Justified Anger Black Leadership Institute, yes. And he just participated in the 6-month intensive leadership program and did exceptionally well in it. And so, Mr. Hicks, I am so glad to have you here on Black Like Me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. So, we always have these great conversations in the office or in the parking lot about life. Some of the things we can talk about in the air, some we can't. But you've listened into the show and you've been a guest before. And so, I like to open up with something that's called Black Icebreakers.
Absolutely.
But before I get to that, I'm just going to talk about 3 pet peeves, 3 things I saw today that got on my nerves. I want you to tell me if I'm crazy, if I'm overreacting. All right.
Okay.
All right. So so be journalist. One is, I saw an ambulance get stuck in traffic on Park Street today. How do people not know that you're supposed to pull over when the ambulance comes? That's somebody's grandmother, somebody's child, or that ambulance. It's coming from out of town. They're speeding down Park Street. Man, one fool was racing them. I mean, was actually in the next lane, just gunning it like he was at Daytona 500.
Wow.
Like, don't people know you pull over when an ambulance is coming in here? Because, we live in Madison.
Right.
So St. Mary's and Meriter are like only 3 blocks away from each other. So
That's
you can't
correct.
just assume they're going to St. Mary's. You got to move over. And this ambulance was not turning at St. Mary's. It was going north
Right.
to go to Meriter. Man, at one point, that ambulance, lights flashing, came to a complete standstill.
Wow.
Because the turning lane and the lane going straight did not open up for them. So I'm gonna start taking pictures of driver's license plates and posting up or something like that. So that got on my nerves before I got to the studio. Is that? I mean, am I justified in that?
No. You justified. By
Okay.
that.
Second one. I saw a man walking his dog as I was coming here. I stopped to let him walk across because Wisconsin, pedestrians have all kinds of rights.
Right.
But like he was walking his dog and he was smiling like it was picture day. I get nervous when white people are smiling at like 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, walking their dog. It's like he was plotting something. I might have been, maybe I'm overly sensitive on that, but he was like smiling from ear to ear, walking that dog. He didn't have any earbuds in, so he wasn't talking to nobody. Should people be smiling that early in the morning while they're walking their dogs?
if the joy of the Lord is his strength, then he can smile.
Okay, so I'm off on that one. No, I'm being funny. It was good to see somebody happy this morning, but that man, he was smiling maybe because the dog didn't drop anything. And my last one, I went through a drive-thru restaurant to get some coffee. So I said, hey, I need, and this is not Starbucks. I was going through a drive-thru, and I said, hey, I need a raspberry latte. And I said, will you please give me 2 Splendas? And they said, yes, sir, coming right up. So raspberry latte with 2 sugars. I said, hold on, y'all can't kill me like that. I can't be like taking sugar in. And so I had to get to the window and explain to them that I need a Splenda, not sugar. But like is that synonymous? Like, is Splenda sugar? I mean, aren't those 2 different?
They're definitely 2 different.
So maybe they just getting confused. Like everybody calls something like a Xerox, even if it's made on Xerox or not. Or people call tissue a Kleenex, even if it's made by Kleenex. Not. So I just thought maybe Splenda was code for sugar, but I wouldn't be sitting here right now. My blood sugars would be messed up if they did what they wanted to do. So am I crazy on that one?
No, you was on point on that.
I was on that one because I don't need
Absolutely.
to be going to no coma or nothing like that.
No.
All right.
Diabetic arrest.
No, man. I don't need to be doing that. We both got to be really careful. All right, I got a couple of questions for you. Ready for your icebreaker questions?
Let's do it.
You think? Okay, you ready to go? First one. What does it mean to split the pole? First of all, tell me, have you ever split the pole?
I have split the pole.
Wait a minute. You split the pole?
I have. That's a violation, though, just so you know.
First of all, if I had known that, I wouldn't have you on the show today. Because that's bad. Did anybody correct you? Did they let
Absolutely,
you get
right away.
Were you with black people when you split the pole?
Absolutely.
What'd they say?
Stop, come back around, so we can.
So tell our listeners what splitting the pole is, because black people don't believe in this.
It's a superstitious thing where people believe if you split the pole, bad things will take
Now,
place.
what does splitting the pole mean, though, when you're walking down the street?
So that's where 2 people are walking down the street.
2 or more, they might be touching and
Right.
agreeing on the same thing.
and one person walks on one side of the pole and the other person walks on the other side.
And the
of
pole
the
could be in the old days it was a telephone booth, or it could have been a mailbox. It's
That's
usually
right.
a tree or a light pole. So
That's
if me
correct.
and you and some friends are walking down the street and you go on the opposite side of the pole, that's a violation.
That's right, because that's called splitting the pole.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So do you still do that,
No,
man?
no, I don't split no more poles.
Okay.
It's over with.
Dang. All right. What does it mean? What would your family members say it means if your palms are itching?
Oh, if your palms are itching, what I grew up is you got some money coming.
So black people used to get happy, like, ooh, my palms is itching.
I got some money coming.
I got some money coming. All right. Have your palms itching lately?
It's itching actually right as we speaking.
Why are you looking at me while they itching?
Because you my boss and you can increase my salary.
All right. Mr. Aaron, as you were growing up as a child, did anybody ever get credit in your name?
For what?
Like for a telephone or for a credit card? Did anybody ever like an uncle, like did a relative ever get credit but use your name while you was a kid or a minor?
Absolutely. A phone bill. No business having a phone bill in my name at the age of 8 or 9.
Do white people do that? Do they put names? They don't. So the white guys in my studio are saying they didn't do that.
No.
We used to get called like, hey, can I speak to John?
I
This is
never
John. You'd be like, 8. Your telephone bill is late. Like, what telephone bill?
Right.
And they would just put stuff. Now that was identity theft, but we didn't call that. It was just called. It was just like,
what it is.
yeah, just help your uncle out. But they
Right.
would put stuff all up in your name.
That's correct. That's correct.
You get grown, try to get a house or stuff like that, and find out you have a no, what is it, AT&T Bell, whatever it used to be called back in the days. Illinois Bell. That's what they call it in Chicago. Wisconsin Bell, Illinois Bell.
Wisconsin Bell.
Man, they'll put oh my goodness. All right, Mr. Aaron, let me just see. When you were a kid, lemon heads or Alexander the Grape?
Both.
Both?
Both.
What'd you like about the lemon heads?
Lemon head, it starts off sour and then you get the sweetness out of it.
What about Alexander the Grape?
They start off sweet and sweet. Sugar.
Come on, sugar. But not coffee though, right? That's
No.
Splenda.
No.
Have you ever snuck into the movies or drive-in?
No.
Really? Okay. All right. That's last question. Have you ever put powder on your hands to slap somebody?
No. I never had my hand powdered. I probably should have.
Have you ever? So you thought about maybe putting your hands
I thought about it, but
just to
I've
slap
never-
somebody, but you decided not to do that.
No, I'm not gonna put no powder.
Okay. All right. Well, you got to Google that one. I don't have enough time to even explain that one. Just Google Michael Epps.
That's right.
Just Google Michael Epps and powder and hands, and they'll kind of figure out what it is. Yeah, it's nothing naughty. It's just kind of violent. So anyway, I'm glad you didn't do that. I'm glad you didn't break into the theater. That was funny. All right, Aaron. So Aaron, you and I have been talking about the importance of you as a young man.
Yeah.
You're in your early 40s, building relationships with older men. And you caught me off guard one day because we were meeting. And again, I've been a mentor. I've been your boss for several years.
Yeah.
But one day we got together and you said, "Man, I need a father figure. I need you to be a father figure." And you didn't flinch. You weren't ashamed. I was kind of waiting for the punchline.
Right.
I thought you were going to ask for a raise or something.
Right.
Like that. And I had your pink slip in my bag in case you were going to do that. But you were very sincere. And so I was touched by the vulnerability and the honesty of saying, "Hey, I've got grown kids. I've got kids who are teens. There's just things I don't know about fatherhood because that wasn't in my home. That,
Right.
Not only was it not a part of my everyday life, like it was something, as you said to me, something I just didn't really see. And we talked about it very honestly.
Yeah.
And so somehow that discussion morphed and it continued. And we just said one day we're probably going to talk about some of those things on the air. So you and I have been talking. You communicate with a lot of men because part of your work is to ask them questions. But today you probably want to talk about some questions that you have on your heart that if you had a father figure in your life as an adult male. Because, what we say is if you get 18, then, hey, it's too late. You don't necessarily need a father figure. But that's not true. I mean, I'm 54. I have a mom who's in a nursing facility and a daughter who just graduated from college. I'm realizing now I need an older man in my life to say, man, how do you balance this? How do you know when to make this move with your mom? Or what kind of advice do you give to your daughter who's an adult? Like, as my daughter was going away to college, my mom was starting to lose, her memories. So I felt this squeeze between, my daughter becoming an adult and my mom in some ways, not becoming a child, I'm not being disrespectful, but needing care like a child. I'm having to make those kinds of decisions.
Right.
Well, in my 50s, I never thought that I needed the advice of an older man to say, what did you do when your mom was getting older and your daughter was coming of age?
Yeah.
And so, first of all, we're just dispelling that myth that just because we become grown men does not mean that we don't need older men and fathering figures in our lives.
That's
would you agree to that?
Absolutely, definitely. You definitely need that still, despite how old you get, you still need that mentor.
Sure. One of the things I'm really proud about, I carry a lot of pride around, Aaron, is when I met you, you were a participant in a Man Up group that I started about 7 years ago. I was still in grad school, and I wanted to find a way to provide support for men coming out of prison because I realized that if people had drug issues or drinking issues or overeating issues, they could go to groups led by people who had been there. But for men coming out of prison, they're sitting with a parole agent or social worker, corrections agent who's never been in prison. Most of the time, they were not male nor black. And they're making decisions about your life and what you're going through. So I created that. You now are paid to run that group. So you facilitate this group. And I got to be honest, you do a better job than I did because, one, you're very consistent. Two, you've been there. You've lived it. You know what that transition is like. But I'm so proud to see you move from a participant in the group to the guy who's responsible for. You got keys to our facility so you can get in and hold this group. And that's part of the work that you and I do together with our work with Nehemiah. We look at people in transition and not not permanent, we work to not permanently affix them to a role or relegate them to a role of a client. First of all, we don't call participants clients.
That's correct.
But we actually are looking at people who were serving to see who could do my job. So you actually replaced me.
That's right.
And so what I remember the day I found this old photo. Man, remember the discussion we had? And on another subject, let's come back to this. Mm-hmm. But do you remember the night we talked about the skull and the teddy bear?
Absolutely.
I found that picture the other day. I'm gonna send it to you.
Okay.
Somebody drew it on the board. Who was that? James that drew it on the board?
I believe so.
And it's like 8 or 9 years ago. And we were talking about boy soldiers and how sometimes underneath their beds when they're being deprogrammed, there would be a human skull from someone they had beheaded, but a teddy bear. So some days these men are warriors. These 11-year-old boys are warriors. And on other days, they're rocking a teddy bear crying because they've been made to cut off the forearms of their grandfathers. And we found out that as black men, we struggled because there were times we didn't know if we were a warrior or a little kid.
That's right.
Because sometimes we were thrust into a warrior position, gangs, drugs, taking care of our moms. Then other days we just wanted to play with Legos and climb trees and have G.I. Joes. And so it was so relevant to us. But what we found out was that as men, we all were dealing with fatherhood issues.
Yeah.
And that's the day I felt like you all let me into the group.
Yeah.
Because you realized that although I was working on my doctorate degree and had an organization I was running, you all found out that I was suffering from some of the same things you all. Do you remember that time we broke that ice on that discussion?
Yeah, that was huge. That was huge.
I remember one day I came into the group and I said, y'all, I had a dream that I got arrested. I was going to prison. And I said, I got to get the man up. These guys got to teach me how to keep my head straight before I go into prison. I think it was you that said, hey, Pastor G, I think that was the Lord's way of letting you relate to us. Man, I was so scared in that dream. It's like, how am I going to stay in prison for 10 years away from my family? But it was so funny. To me, I thought it was humorous, but you all took it seriously. You're like, you know what, man? Maybe that happened so that you can understand us better.
That's right.
I just know we had some real honest conversations, but the theme that kept coming up was fatherhood.
Yeah.
So that's part of what we're talking about today. This is airing as a part of our fatherhood series, and so what you and I said we would try to do is just field some real questions that young fathers have.
Yeah.
And today, you get to practice on me by just talking about questions that you may have as a father to an older father.
Absolutely.
What's on your heart for the first one?
Well, I would just say before I hit that question,
sure.
Because my father was never in my life, and being the age of 44, the little boy inside of me still desires my father, and I know that there's a multitude of people who didn't have their fathers in their life,
right?
They still desire that. It never goes away. So having someone in your life, a surrogate father, it definitely fills in the blank of the void in which, you long for someone to be able to talk to confide in, to be able to get constructive criticism, and just be able to bounce ideas and things off of that individual.
That's important. That's so important. What do you think my reaction was when you asked me that? Because I know what I was thinking, but I don't know if I have a poker face or not. What was going through your head about what you thought was going through my head when you asked me that?
Well, I mean, the question to ask someone to be the role of a surrogate father in your life probably is a rarity, first of all.
Definitely.
And then it's about the seriousness of it. Is this individual is actually really that serious about it? And so those are the things I was thinking that were going through your head, like, wow, this is a heavy question. It's very serious. And how do I fulfill this task? Right.
Because you and I are only 10 years apart.
That's correct.
To the day. We have the same birthday.
That's right.
Just 10 years apart.
That's correct.
Because we try to get together and have lunch or breakfast on around our birthday.
That's correct.
But did I look overwhelmed? Did I look scared?
No. You was receptive to it, and you just asked me, how does that look to you? How am I able to do that for you?
You remember that? You
absolutely,
remember what I said?
Absolutely. Because it meant a lot to me. I wasn't asking it in vain. I was very serious about what I was asking, because I felt that was a need in my life. That's something that I lacked, and I wanted to emulate someone or something that's has already been through fathering their child. And you did an excellent job with Lexi, and you're still working with her. Before she even went to college or any of that, I still remember her just being in the church, I still remember her being little, and
Sure.
she's a young woman now, and
Why do you think it's so hard for men to ask that? Because that was if anyone else had asked me that, and we're only 10 years apart, I probably would have not taken them seriously. And I don't mean hurting their feelings, but not sure if they're being sincere. Because I remember the conversation. You said, what you did for Lexi, I need you to do that and be that in my life. And I was like, well, you want me to send you to college? Like, what are you talking about, Aaron?
Yeah.
Then you said, no, I need a father figure.
Yeah.
Like the first 5 or 10 seconds, I just thought you were messing with me because we say funny stuff to each other, crazy stuff to each other. But as you started talking, I saw the sincerity of it, and what kept going through my mind was, it takes a lot of guts for a man to say that to them. So why do you think that's hard for men, regardless of their background, regardless of their ethnicity? Why is it hard for fathers of men to ask other men to fulfill that role in their lives?
I think the hardest part is being vulnerable. As men, we don't like to let down our guards.
Right.
We don't like to be transparent. We can talk about surface things, sports, the game last night. We might even
work.
Right. We can talk about our job, those type of things. But when you talk about allowing yourself to become vulnerable, talking about the things that most men won't say, I think it's a difficult task to be able to say, hey, I need help, I need support.
Sure.
This is where I feel vulnerable at, and I see that you have accomplished some things in your life. Would you be willing to help me? I think it's super difficult for men to ask for help.
That's important. Another thing that threw me off, Aaron, we will get to the questions in just a moment.
Absolutely.
But I think sometimes it's important to get to the background of why this is going on.
Yeah.
Because when I got married at 24, became a father at 33. And I mean, you're part of our church. There aren't a lot of older men. Like if I ask men who are 65 and older, they're probably 2, maybe 3 in our church. So when I first got married, I was the only married guy in our church. I was the first brother in our church to get married. So I had to really build that relationship through other men I respected. So men who were fathers, and I couldn't ask them to be a surrogate father, because many of them were my age, like within 6 months or even younger.
Yeah.
But I gleaned a lot of information from them. I asked questions. Then there were cousins. There were folks who I had who were a little older. I have a really close friend. He was the chairman of my nonprofit board. He's deceased now. His name is Steve Hayner. He would never say that he was a surrogate father for a number of reasons. He was white. We were only 15 years apart. But like what I said at his memorial service was, he was the most consistent adult figure in my adult life. But I watched how he paid for his kids' college. He taught me how he bought his daughter a condo when she went away to college to use the equity. Because, you get an apartment, you stay in the dorms. He bought her a condo so that she could then sell it, take the equity, and either use it for a wedding, to buy a house. But I didn't know you could set your child up like this. He just explained things to me. So when you said it, I realized I'm not the young guy at the table asking somebody to help me. I'm now the older guy that younger men are coming to. So I was making that transition. Because at what point do I say, I might not have everything I need, but I've been invested enough in enough to give to the next generation. So part of what happened was not only the discussion around your question, but I had to make that paradigmic shift in my head that maybe I'm at a point where I stopped looking for mentors. And I've got to really focus on being that. I stopped looking for fathering figures. And I become that. And that was a big shift for me, because in my heart, there are probably some more things I needed, and so I was afraid of failing you too, which helps me to understand how fathers feel when they've not had fathers. Because I thought, this man's sincere. I'm also his boss. I'm also his pastor. We're friends. How do we not mess this up? If I take that kind of role and say something directly, I'm not saying it as a pastor or as a boss, is this gonna mess our relationship up? And I think it taps into a lot of fears that dads have of, am I going to mess somebody up because I don't know what I'm doing?
No, I think one of the things that you displayed, though, and I know that you probably wasn't even thinking like this, but one of the things that stood out to me, we were in a meeting, and it was, I don't know, it was a wide variety, probably some city people, and a lot of your staff was there, I was there, whatever the case may be. And one of the individuals was handling one of the staff on our team just a little rough, or whatever the case may be. And what stood out to me is immediately you intervened and said something like, and what's
I remember that meeting.
And what stood out to me is the fact that, I mean, normally most people will just, shake their head or just let it go, but you stopped it. you corrected that individual, and to me that displayed leadership. But part of being a father is a protector.
Right. You're right.
And you displayed that protection for that individual, for one of your staff. But ultimately, that's something that I have always felt I never had. I've always felt that I didn't have a protector. I didn't have part of being a father, I believe, is your guide. They guide you because life is hard,
Yes.
you know? And I felt I've never had that. I never had someone stand up or protect me or try to guide me through this thing called life. We know life is super difficult.
Right.
And so
Good insight.
those are the things that I desired, and how to handle, situations, specifically with your kid. And obviously I was gone for a significant amount of time, being incarcerated. How do I come back into my child's life and establish the father-daughter relationship? Those are the things that that was in my cry.
Definitely. And these are questions tens of thousands of men have.
That's correct.
Whether they've been incarcerated or not.
That's
and
right.
We know it's questions that their children have. So, no, this is great, Aaron. I appreciate your transparency, and I really appreciate our relationship. And I know that we're only touching the subject today, so I hope we get good response.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying the energy right now and talking with you. But I just think that these are things we need to continue discussing.
Yeah.
So I know you and I, you said you had a couple questions. So what's the initial one, the first one that we jump into?
So my first question, a lot of this is pertaining to my own personal childhood,
Sure, that makes
but
sense.
it's also to a lot of the men that I'm able to deposit some good into their hearts and into their lives.
They're looking to you for
That's
that.
right. But so my first question is, when a man comes from an abusive family, so like in my family with my mom, she had a boyfriend, and he was abusive to myself and to my sister. And then as you become older, how do you derail that same behavior that was pushed on you in your lifetime? How do you get past that? How do you get that abusiveness out of your heart, out of your mind? Because it's very prevalent in my life, and that's something that I don't want to display. I want to be able to get that out of my life. I don't want to have that continue into my family and to my kids' life.
Get it. I want to remind folks, part of our Black Like Me family is, as we're talking about this, I'm really speaking from the perspective of a dad. So for those of us who are part of our family and listening, I'm not counseling at this point. I'm not life coaching. Aaron's asking me a question, dad to dad, as a surrogate father. So I'm saying it because you don't get a good lead in. Like when you and your child need to discuss something, you don't necessarily say, hey, Dad, here's something I want to talk about in 3 weeks, and you get an email. Sometimes stuff comes up. And so I just want to remind people that we're just talking as fathers.
Yeah.
Was he abusive to your mom as well, or just the
Absolutely, kids? Absolutely. I mean, it was many times I saw him literally. My mom, she had MS. She was a quadriplegic, and I'm the youngest of 3. And I used to literally watch him slap her out of her wheelchair, and I would just cry. And I was so little, I mean, I couldn't do anything, but it stuck with me. Those visuals will never leave. That's been imprinted on me for eternity until I'm not here anymore. But so those are the things that I saw. And as I just talked to a lot of the men, they deal with fathers who have been alcoholics,
I've
abusive.
watched my father slap my mother.
I'm actually going through a divorce, but even speaking to my wife, she also was talking about how her father was an alcoholic, how he broke her nose, how he put a gun to her mom's head, all of those things. And it's like, how do you set yourself free from that and continue to move on, even though that's very prevalent in your life? How do you turn your mess into your message?
Oh, man, you would start with the real hard one. I would say a number of things. One, those images, as you mentioned, they don't just go away. So one thing I would say to you, and for every father, every man that's experienced this, is you got to have some place to take that pain, because we're scarred as well. One of the things I found out is that children, but specifically we're talking about boys, who have witnessed domestic abuse in their home, they absorb it, and sometimes the secondhand abuse is even is even worse because you couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
Because you could at least toughen it up and say, it didn't hurt me. Like, hit me again.
Yeah.
But when you're watching someone who's innocent, someone who has MS, quadriplegic, being slapped out of a chair, that's a little man who does that.
Yeah.
But when you're doing it, standing over a helpless person, a helpless woman in a wheel who spilled out of a wheelchair, he's talking and presenting like he's a real man. Like, talk smart now or talk back now.
Right.
But he's got his issues. I'm not excusing it.
Yeah.
He's really a little man.
Yeah.
But he's talking like he's a big man. So the difficulty of a little boy seeing that is that what real men do? Are women afraid of real men? Our kids are. Is that what it means to be a man? Because we're on pins and needles. If he says jump, we jump.
That's
right. He says I want my dinner at 6:00.
That's right.
So part of what men have got to do is they got to find some support. That's the big thing. You got to talk to someone because that stuff doesn't just go away. Like, I don't think about it all the time, but as you were talking about it, I remember after my parents separated, my mom went to Chicago because she would always take me to see my father. She never belittled him. But somehow something happened. He had a new son, and we're close now. Yeah. But I think she felt he was trying to show off his new son and felt like I was being shunned. She didn't care. She had moved on. Yeah. But she felt like he was trying to somehow make me feel jealous that he had a new son. Yeah. And she said something smart, and right in this courtyard, I remember him hauling off and slapping her. And she picked up a beer bottle and broke it on his head. And I remember walking away thinking, I'm glad my mother defended herself. But I can't be normalizing my mom picking up, a Schlitz malt liquor bottle and hitting somebody in the head with it. Yeah. So I think we have to get help so that we don't normalize that. Because when you grow up around that, we kind of think it happens in everybody's home.
That's correct.
Until we visit somebody, they get in an argument and nobody ends up on the floor. We think, that don't happen in everybody's home because we think what happens in our house. So I would say to the men like you, get a pastor. Yeah. Get a counselor. What I appreciate about you, Aaron, is that you've always put help around you. You got counselors. You got people to really help you. So I would say, one, understand it's not your fault nor your mother's fault. Yeah. And you need help to understand that. Yeah. What I've noticed sometimes with young boys whose mothers have been physically abused, they would feel like, Mom, come on, don't agitate them. Sometimes the mothers would egg on the abusive boyfriends and fathers to take the beating so that he wouldn't beat the kid.
That's right. So
sometimes the mothers would do stuff.
That's right.
Come on, baby, sit down. Let me get you your beer. Yeah. I know it's been a long day. I'm sorry I spilled this on the floor. I'm sorry the mail wasn't in. To get his ignorant tail asleep. And then tell the kids, go to the library. Get out. That's what was going on in a lot of our homes. Our mothers were trying to absorb that. Is that what happened in your home?
Absolutely.
I didn't even know that, but just talking to men.
Absolutely.
So I think you have to look at the situation and realize in that scenario, your mom was a victor. She was victorious and not a victim. He victimized her, but she refused to be in the place of a victim. Yeah. Having MS, there was very little she could do to protect you, but she could take that whooping so that you all wouldn't be destroyed. So part of his understanding, he was weak and she was strong. Yeah. Because sometimes boys grow up thinking, my mom egged him on. And if she would just be right, he wouldn't be upset. Yeah. So they grow up blaming the victim.
That's correct.
I have never heard you talk about your mother as a victim or blaming her. So whatever work you've done in that area, I want to laud you for it. But I said the initial thing is get the help that men need, get the help that you've gotten to understand she didn't deserve that, you didn't deserve that, your siblings didn't deserve it. What it does do is it does generate a lot of anger inside of us and anxiety. Yeah. That the other shoe is going to drop. Like, like if somebody's voice gets too loud or something goes on, it kind of gives you that quick kind of sense that something's about to happen. So I also think that men have got to deal with anxiety that we try to address with sex or drinking or making more and more money and not really competition and not really slowing down and realize I got something broken in me. And I can't work it out or spend it out or drink it out. Yeah. So I got to really talk to somebody. So it's got to be a buddy, a pastor, a counselor. Men have got to talk and say, this is my reality. Yeah. So that they don't hold that in their heads. Because it's not just that they see somebody beating a woman and then they go do it. Yeah. It's the anxiety, it's the fear, it's the normalization of it that we don't really think about. But then in the moment of a heated moment, the image of how that moment was handled comes to the forefront. And then a brother's got to decide, am I going to repeat that? Right. And I think so often men have repeated it before they realize I'm just like my mom's boyfriend.
And if I could just throw this at you, one of the things is when you're young, I was a kid. Right. So what happens is you tend to tuck stuff away.
Of course.
No one teaches you how to cope with those type of traumas.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of just bottle that up and you kind of keep moving.
Right.
And as men, we're taught we bottle things up. You keep it moving. You don't cry. You don't ask for help. These are the things that you don't do.
Right.
These are all the stigmas or the lies that people have told you. And you start to buy into that ideology. Only to find out later on that's not okay. But then you already
the pattern set.
There you have it, and it's you already displaying some of these behaviors, and because you didn't tuck so much away, you don't even know like where to even start. Where do I even start? How do I get this stuff up out of me? And I'm a strong believer you can never heal what you won't reveal. I think why we do the Man Up group is to get men to be able to have those discussions, to have those tough discussions that they don't get a chance to. It ain't about, because in prison, I mean, you lie to me for 15 minutes, I lie to you for 15 minutes, and we keep it moving. Versus as really dealing with real issues, those things that's deep within inside of us, that's been embedded inside of us. How do we work that up out of us? So I just wanted to throw that in the equation because as we continue to grow as men, we don't even always know what are we even dealing with because we have bottled so much.
It's hidden from us.
That's right.
As you're talking, Aaron, is making me think if my father was physically abusive, not to me as a kid, but to my mom, but it was in front of me, and I was about 2 when they separated. So that incident I talked about with the beer bottle, I was 6 because we moved to Madison by that time. But I think internally. I remember subconsciously. I remember some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is, at another story, we'll talk about your background and your story. You have an incredible story, but you spent some years away. You were incarcerated. Society knows how to catch men who've been incarcerated and say you need a support group.
Yeah.
But you know what really scares me are the professional men like myself, who are middle class and advanced degrees, who took our pain and became track captains and the head of student council and the first black person to achieve this, to open this, to buy this, to start this, to write this, to perfect this. And so my peers, we don't sit down and talk about brokenness because we're too accomplished. First of all, folks don't want to hear accomplished black men bemoan America. That's part of what white America's problem is. Yeah. You're middle class, you're making as much money as we are, you driving as well as we are, you living in our neighborhoods. We don't want to talk about how hard life is for you.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, I don't know that black men who are struggling want to hear affluent black men talk about their abusive parents and stuff like that. Well, man, you overcame it. Look, you went to college, sent your kid to college. So my point is, as you talk about what you do for Man Up, I realize that there's a whole nother group of professional black men who are dealing with some of those same memories, but it didn't take them to prison. It took them to Ivy League schools. It took them to the head of their class. And we think it's gone until trouble or trauma happens. And I think stuff like Black Lives Matter, police officers and black men, I think that's triggering a lot of us black men who thought that treatment and that stuff was gone. New trauma is invoking old memories of trauma in our home. And there's going to be a need for black men who are considered leaders in our community to sit down with each other and to talk about the same kinds of trauma, because it's expected if you've been incarcerated or been on drugs. When you've been accomplished, nobody thinks you have anything to talk about. Men in general, irrespective of what your ethnic background is, your academic success, your economic success, if you grew up with this kind of trauma that you and I are talking about, it's not too late to get help, because somehow it's impeding your relationship with yourself, your spouse, your loved ones, and your children. And so we got to get help. Men, whoever you are, you owe that to your children. Get some help.
And you can be accomplished in one area and fall short in another.
Most people do. It's hard to keep it up in every area.
That's right. Until we start to face and deal with some of those traumas.
The other thing we can do is just think about what would have been helpful to us. So you're asking, like, how do we move out of our own mess to help our children? To catch ourselves and realize, when I was that age, you know what, I didn't need to be yelled at. I need to be listened to. You know, when I was growing up, PBS used to have these specials called Scared Straight. Getting kids scared out of being in trouble in prison. So they would they take you to a prison and let people talk mean to you, sexualize you, say stuff, graphic stuff to you to scare you. And I said that to you one time. I said, Aaron, we need to bring that program back. You said, no, Pastor G. You said these brothers already had the hell scared out of them. They need to have, what they need is to be loved.
That's right.
And that was such a paradigm shift for me, because I'm thinking, you scare people into doing the right thing. thing. And so, but you knew what men needed who were in trouble. So I think we know what our sons need, our daughters need. So rather than merely going at them or addressing them from a parental perspective, we are always the parents. But what did I need at that age? Did I need to be listened to? Did I need to have somebody just put me in the car and just say, all right, this is not going to be held against you. Just say what you need to say.
Yeah.
Just let it all out. So I think part of what we have to do is understand not just what we think we should be doing as parents, but remembering how we felt as those children and give them room and to express things.
That's right.
I think getting help and giving them room to do that helps you to not repeat the same cycle. And remember that what you saw, what it did to you. And if I do this to my child, they're going to be sitting on somebody's podcast in 30 years talking about this.
That's right.
And at all costs, do not repeat the cycle.
That's right. And I think also just adding to that, being able to discern what's age appropriate.
Right.
Because a lot of times we you take a 4, 5, 6-year-old, you're asking them to sit down or don't. That's not going to happen. That's age appropriate. The thing. It doesn't always mean that your kid is out of control or needing to be medicated or none of the above. That's age appropriate. And I think we just have to continue to.
That's a good word, Aaron.
We have to continue to pour into our young people so that they do have a better outlook of what it's like to be a father, being able to see it in real time, being able to ask questions like, how are you able to do that? What makes you not respond this way versus this is what I saw? Why are you not doing that? And so being able to have those questions and having someone that actually walk you through it. A lot of times we give information and it's very vague in the sense of, I still don't know how to do that until you actually show me and walk me through it so I can be able to see it, touch it, taste it, and know, okay, this is how that goes.
And the scary part is if I'm walking you through it and I don't really know how to do it, then I get shown up. But I think there's still a part within children, part of children who can appreciate the vulnerability of their parents. I mean, we put it upon ourselves that they want us to be these super parents. But there's nothing wrong with saying, look, I don't know how to do this. So let's call your uncle who knows math. Or let's call somebody else. Let's do this. But I like what you said about being age appropriate. Like, no one ever talked to me about the facts of life. Nobody says birds and bees anymore. But when I was a kid in the 70s, that's what it was called. No one ever had the sex talk with me. Did not have the sex talk with me. So when my daughter at 11 sits down at the dinner table and says, hey, mom and dad, so where do babies come from? I wasn't ready for that talk at 11 because nobody gave me that talk at 18.
Right. We coming up, I'm not even thinking about it. My mom, she ain't even going. I wish I would even said something about sex. That would have cost.
She would have found a way to get over that too.
That's right.
That's right, because she still, even in that chair, she knew how to whoop you.
Yeah, absolutely. She ain't play no games.
She didn't play no games.
None.
What? So I would say, man, to fathers, this is something I want fathers to take out the vocabulary. This is what was done for me, so this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Like I had lots of experience. Not a lot. Yeah, I had a lot of experience getting spanked. But Lexi's a different child. You could look at her a certain way, and it will get you the same result as me getting it with a Hot Wheel track. Now, kids don't know what Hot Wheel track. Them little orange tracks.
Right.
Wait, I heard Jeremy. Like, Jeremy, you know what those Hot Wheel tracks are? Yeah, that's because you're from Pennsylvania. That's right. In Wisconsin, them kids didn't know what them Hot Wheel tracks. Man, it was like, I think Mattel stopped making them because they realized kids was getting whooped with them tracks. But so many people would just say, this is what happened to me, and look at me, and they do the same thing without understanding what the child needs. So I just think just slowing down and understanding we have a new chance with this child.
Yeah.
That there's a part of what we didn't get as a father can be satisfied by really being that protector. And is what I'm about to do protective or destructive for our kids?
Yeah.
That's a great question, man.
Yeah.
What was it, one of the other questions you had?
Another question I had is
first of all, was that helpful? I mean,
no, that was huge.
Okay,
that
good.
was huge.
I didn't want to just jump right to
just the whole dialogue in itself was huge. But my another follow-up question is specifically for men who've been incarcerated. How do you so when I went to prison, my daughter was 3 weeks old. When I came home, she was 12 going on 13.
3 weeks old.
Yeah. And so my question is, how do you insert yourself back into your child's life? Is there a healthy, a safe, way to be able to get back into your child's life. I communicated with her the whole time I was incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
However,
that's important.
It was very different us being in the same household.
Sure.
I long to be in my daughter's life. Something that I like. My father wasn't in my life, so for me not to be able to wake up and go to sleep to my daughter was not even an option. Like as soon as I was able to be with her, that's all I
remember.
I wanted, I couldn't be, she's with her mom part-time and me part-time. I couldn't do that either. I wanted to be able to see my daughter every single day. I needed to know when she woke up, when she went to sleep, what she needed, whatever the case may be. My daughter played a major part into my life, and even to me coming home, because I realized that a lot of my decision-making, I didn't keep her in the equation. So I made a vow to myself. Anytime I made a decision, she would always be a part of it. And if it would hinder me from getting to her, I wouldn't do it. So,
and I've watched you do that. I've watched you keep that promise. One thing I say just as a side note, though, Aaron, and we need to come back and talk about this on another time, hearing your heart, that's what you felt and said from day one when you came right out of the correction system and you came to our Man Up group. But Department of Corrections still had the power to tell you could not live with your wife and your daughter. So you've been out of her life for 12 years. When you came out, you could go and visit. And again, we'll get into your story later on, but it had nothing to do with her or children or domestic violence, nothing to do with your home. But the Department of Correction, some woman with a master's degree could say you could not live with your wife and your daughter for how many years?
For 7 years.
For 7 years.
That's correct.
So I just think people understand this too. That sometimes they'll look at our families and just think, well, how are you going to go away and not be in your child's life? And then you over here living it up and your child is over here. You were on an ankle bracelet for 7 years.
That's correct.
If they saw that you were at that address after a certain time.
That's right. I would go to jail.
Your GPS would go, you would go to jail.
That's correct.
You would, in fact, even being off paper, you've been called and asked, what are you doing over at your wife's place?
That's right.
So that's exactly. I'm getting mad. My blood pressure going. We're gonna talk about that again. People don't think that this is real.
Yeah.
I've been in meetings with you. I've been in corrections meetings with you. I've been with you with your agents. I was with you when you got off paper. I know you off paper.
Yeah.
I was with your agent when he shook your hand and thanked you for successfully completing it.
Yeah.
Just to go 3 weeks later and have some woman or man with a little earpiece in at some control center spying on you through your ankle bracelet saying, are you going to be moving in? Are you going to be over there? Because this is a felony.
Yeah.
We're going to get a judge. Somebody going to come on and talk to us. I'm trying to get your agent, but somebody going to come on with us and explain this to me and to America.
Well, let me just share this. Just a sidebar. So I had to do a presentation in Kenosha. And I was doing it in front of a nonprofit group called Gamelia, and they're a national group. But I was sharing some of the various things that you were talking about, and the person who's over the whole Gamelia was there actually, and she heard this and she was like, "How is this possible?" She was like, "You're done with probation. You're done with parole." And nevertheless,
you're a free citizen. You can vote now again, right? Because you are paper. You can vote, but you can't live at your wife's house.
That's right. I don't have the liberty to just go to and fro like every person else. I can't just move when I want to move. I have to even be cautious when I travel outside of the state as well. But when she heard this, collectively the group could not believe that this was even possible. So on a national level, they actually want to take this up as well.
I think we need to, because that's a violation of so many rules. This is what we talk about when we mention the over-criminalization of individuals.
Yeah.
You do something wrong, we've got rules. You break those rules, you go to jail. So we're not saying that people don't go to jail, but when you did 12, 13 years inside prison, you came out and did 7 years of parole.
Yeah.
Am I getting the word right?
Extended supervision.
Extended supervision. Thank you. I watched you do that.
Yeah.
They never took your rights away and sent you back to prison. You stayed out. So that's 13 years plus 7. That's like 20 years.
That's right.
And some civil servant person from the state is going to call you and tell you where you can.
That's right.
Where you can sleep and where you can lay your head.
And what people don't realize is, when when you are on probation or parole, you lose some of your constitutional rights. But when you successfully complete it,
they're supposed to be returned to you.
You're supposed to get all of them back, with the exception of carrying a firearm.
Sure.
But in my situation, I still don't get all of my liberties because I still have to give an account to if I move, if I can't come over your house and stay there for the next 3 nights because that would become a Class H felony, and then I would be charged for it.
Yeah, somebody gonna come on here and explain this to us. I'm glad Camillea's doing it, but I want to bring. We have a mutual friend who's a judge. Maybe we'll bring somebody, an assistant DA. Somebody's got to explain this.
Yeah, absolutely.
To us. Hey, we got time for one more question, and I appreciate your transparency, man. I definitely need to have you back because I know that when people are listening, they learn a lot about the criminal justice system and don't understand that we're really setting people up to fail, because most of us don't have to do all this juggling while still taking polygraph tests and paying for it, and urine analysis and paying for it, and all this kind of stuff. And then we want you to be a constructive member of our society.
Yeah.
So I would say. I'm sorry. We were. Let me just say this about. I got sidetracked about when folks were coming out. I realized looking back that my father did prison time. I didn't really understand it as a kid, but as an adult, I think understanding that he went away, that his absence was not because of me. I think children tend to think, why was I not important enough to make good ideas?
Yeah.
And now him explaining it to me didn't take the pain away, but knowing that it wasn't because of me does help. Yeah. And so what I would say to you, man, is just communicate it, because there are things we know in our heads, but it takes a while for it to get to our heart. So I'm sure your daughter understands cognitively you weren't trying to dodge her or being away from her.
Yeah.
But to be gone her whole, preteen years, and then you got to try to explain to her why you can't stay with her mother, your wife, and her, she could read that into a whole lot of things, that he's not committed to me, he don't want to come over here, he don't, she can't wake up and you there in the home, because that's a violation.
Right.
So I think even as an adult, continuing to explain to her, hey, I wasn't in your life for those first 12 years because I made some stupid excuses and stupid mistakes. But I'm trying to be in your life so that, and I made those mistakes because of pain. I know you've had pain because I wasn't here, and other kinds of pain.
Yeah.
And by not being away, I couldn't protect you. So there may be things you've endured where I couldn't really champion your cause. But it was not because I didn't love you, because I didn't value you. There was never a day that went by that I didn't think about you. And even when our children are stiff-arming us, we need to still hear that. My father told me what happened with his relationship with my mom. I already knew her side of it. Yeah. But when he explained it to me, it clicked. Yeah. It was not because of me. He hated his father because his father beat his mother. He was a sharecropper in Mississippi, so he was abused economically and physically by white sharecroppers. He escaped from Mississippi when he was a teenager to be raised by his younger sister who married an older man. So he came to live with a younger sister with an older husband, and met my mom when they were teenagers, and he just kept pushing people away because he didn't think that he was worthy of love. Yeah. And explained to me some of the scenario of what happened. Now, I didn't take away all the pain, but helped me to understand, where did black men go in the 50s to get help? Where did they go and say, this is what sharecropping is doing to me. This is what Jim Crow's done to me. This is what it feels like to be a couple of miles from Emmett Till, where he was lynched. Yeah. As he started talking, I couldn't completely get into his place, but I thought, okay, my life is hard, but never have I feared being lynched. Yeah. Never did I fear getting off the sidewalk when a white woman walked by, or a white woman saying I whistled at her and looked her up and down. How do you carry all of that? You can't vote. You're a boy. And all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And then you saw your father beat your mom, and your mom left and didn't raise you. I just thought, man, that's the story of so many black men from the rural South who then come to the big city where they can get a gun and some money and a girl and a factory job and have money in their pocket. And he never processed that hurt. So back to your first question, what did he do? He was never able to process what happened. He just kept focusing on the fact that his mother left. Yeah. And he was mad at women because she left. Yeah. Because they then took the beating that she was getting. And so I just think if we're going to be protectors, we got to be around, and even when our children are rejecting us, keep reminding her that you love her, so that what she knows cognitively connects with her heart. Because one day she's gonna make the connection. My father died about 4 years ago, but I have this sense of peace that his decision to do what he did, my mom, was his decision. Yeah. But it's because when broken people are broken, hurt people.
That's what they do.
But it wasn't about me. And she made the move to get away from him so that I wouldn't hate him. So she did what she could do within her power.
Yeah.
And so now, as a person who's 54, almost 55, I've got peace with that.
Yeah.
But I've talked to a lot of people, processed it, written about it, had shows about it, sermons about it. So we have to do this work, and we have to keep hearing messages of love until it connects with our heads and our head and our hearts. So I just say with your daughter, with your sons, just continuing to remind them, hey, look, anytime you want to talk to me about how angry you are about my not being here, you can always do it.
Yeah.
So that we don't get stuck.
Yeah,
I
like
never want to
that.
talk about this to get stuck, because getting stuck will hurt you
Yeah.
more. I'm already hurt. All it would do is injure us more. We know it's real. So anytime you need to talk about it, let's talk. Say what's on your mind.
Yeah.
But we have to move ahead. Otherwise, honey, you're going to be having this discussion with your son, with your daughter in 20 years. And so whatever we got to do to move ahead, let's move ahead. So give the children the space. Why did you go? And did you think about me? And because then when you're away, you got to negotiate things with the mother of the child.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of stuff. You know, if a brother's struggling, again, like years ago, my father wasn't going to write letters from prison. He had third grade education. He wasn't going to be writing me letters from prison.
Right.
So how did he explain his long periods of absence?
Yeah.
So I just think just continuing to explain your story and how you're working to better yourself and improve yourself, not for you,
Yeah.
but for the child, particularly now, because you mentioned that you're going through divorce.
Yeah.
You just want to make sure, baby, this has got nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to. So I just think over communicate.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, some things are different when you meet outside and you go away for 13 years and there's changes, but it's got nothing to do with you. But anything you need to say to me, say it. So I say continue to invite your children to have honest dialogue, because they're either going to say it or they're going to hold it inside and say it internally. I'd rather for my child to say it out so that venom gets out. So what I would say is what men can do is if you're away, write to your child.
Yeah.
Call your child.
Yeah.
And thank the mother of your children for what they're doing. Don't be away and not remember that Mama Mother's Day. Don't treat her like she's trash. Respect these women, because they could turn your children against you.
That's right.
And regardless of what you did to her, did not do for her, she's the one that's carrying the responsibilities of your collective child. So I would say to those men, even if you haven't done it, start writing letters. Just keep, even if he or she don't respond, keep sending them. Because what I hear men say is, my child don't want to have nothing to do with me, so I just stop. They don't want to be with me. You're the parent. Act like the grown up. Write the letters. Do not forget birthdays. You got folks outside. Call a brother, uncle. My daughter likes this. She likes that. I need you to put something under the tree. I need you to go to her house. I need you to go to his house.
Yeah.
Use your connections. Let that child know that you're thinking about them every day, and remind them that that steel bars are not enough to keep the child out their heart. They have to over communicate it, because all the child knows is you're not here because of a decision you made.
That's right. That's right. No, that's huge.
This is a part we got to keep adding to our work too. And I know you talk about this with men in your support group, but we have to keep reminding men of how to do this. And part of what you all do through Man Up is you talk to men about reconnecting with their children.
That's right.
Because if you haven't injured your child enough, get out.
Yeah.
And then still not be in their lives. You have to do that. You have to do that. And I just think that that's so important.
Yeah. No, that's huge.
You know, Aaron, man, time always goes by so quickly when you and I are talking, but promise me that we'll continue, that we'll do another Fathering Fatherless Fathers.
Absolutely.
Because I think children listening of men who have been incarcerated or who have struggled with fatherlessness might understand their fathers a little differently. I could have stood to hear this when I was 17. The mothers of our children need to hear this.
Yeah.
And the men who have been incarcerated, or the men who have not been in their children's lives for a number of reasons, need to hear this as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that this is a subject that has great implications in our community. And if our conversations help 1, 2, 3, or 4 people move closer to their children, or closer to their fathers, we've done a great service.
Absolutely.
So, hey, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. My guest has been the tremendous Aaron Hicks. He's Assistant Director of Reentry for Nehemiah Center for Urban Leadership Development. He's a man who's used his experiences, good and bad, to better his community, to be a surrogate father to others, and to just continue to give back to the community. It's a way of really cleaning up what he messed up As always, thank you all for being a part of the Black Like Me family. You can always find our podcast on iTunes or Spotify, or you can go to on Android users can just do a search for Black Like Me podcast. If you want to catch or read some of my blogs or some of my G-isms, which are my pithy, poignant sayings that can give you some insight for the day, just go to alexg.com. You can find me on Reverend Dr. Alex G on Facebook, or just tweet out at me at Alex G Jr. But we're just always trying to inspire you by allowing you to have a very important glimpse into our community. So thank you, everyone, for being a part of the Black Like Me family. And hey, Seattle, New York, Minneapolis, the race is on. We're going to see by next week who's going to really show a brother some love. So thank you for being a part of Black Like Me family. Have a great day. And as always, we say, listen, learn, and then live better.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. You can find out more about Dr. Alex G's amazing work at www.alexg.com. Black Like Me is sponsored by the generosity of the Human Family Unity Foundation.